What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest, presented by Great Flood Brewing Company. I am your host, Jeff Greer, alongside our beautifully crafted man, our co-host, our producer, Jack Grossman. Jack, first and foremost, how are you, my friend? I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time.
It is fantastic to see you as well, Jeff, and I am doing great. It is the start of March Madness. I know it sucks that Louisville is not going to be a part of it, but that doesn't mean we still can't enjoy it as college basketball fans.
Of course not.
It's by far the best month of the year, so I am absolutely ecstatic to be here today. And I do apologize. You know, we had Josh Hurt a couple weeks ago, Luke Hancock last week. And now I feel bad that everyone is stuck with the 12-year-old that sounds like he should be in middle school right now. But I am happy to be here. I don't care if anyone else wants me here or not. Thank you, as always, for having me on, Jeff. We're gonna have some fun.
Well, Jack, I want
or at least
you here,
I'll have fun.
Yes, we will definitely have fun, and I want you here. So don't worry about the haters. Block out the haters. As I put in my newsletter, please, to our wonderful Arkansas fans who were mad at us a few weeks ago for talking about their coach, and left, I think, a couple of 1-star reviews on the podcast. Thank you for your passion. I appreciate it. I love that they are passionate because I love college basketball through thick and thin. They are a great fan base. So
can we do a Woo Big Zooey chant to try to get back on?
I don't want to do it because I'll screw it up, but I will tell them that I tried to get one of their alums to do it on a video for one of the soccer teams here in town last summer, and she would not do it. She
Really?
said, I don't do that for just anybody. So it was funny, but no, so I apologize to our Arkansas fans.
And their team's on a tear too.
Their team's on a tear.
Their last 14.
We're sorry. I had been told that was a possibility. So I apologize for making you guys upset. So if you are a Louisville fan and love this podcast, or if you're someone who loves to hate it but still enjoys the information you get, or whatever, for whatever reason you have come to partake in this pod, make sure you leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, and you can find this podcast obviously wherever you get them. So Spotify, Apple, obviously you can watch the streamed version of it on Twitter. We've got the YouTube page as well for Field of 68 that we highly recommend you subscribe to. All of those things. There's so many good podcasts throughout the course of the day. There's so many different talented people talking about different teams. My favorite is the 3-Man Weave. I probably should suck up to Doster and Goodman as well and say I enjoy it whenever they're on. Of course, we all love John Fanta, but 3-Man Weave is my go-to for college basketball. So tune into those. But Jack, we got a lot to talk about here. We wanted to pause on the guests this week because I think it's good for us to do like a palate cleanse every couple of episodes. We had Luke Hancock, who I consider to be one of the more vocal, like modern Louisville players. I shouldn't say modern because that sounds rude to people, but one of the new age guys, one of the guys who is part of the most recent wave of success for Louisville.
The Pitino era.
The Pitino era. His opinion matters here in town. Obviously, we had Josh Hurt on talking about his thought process, and I thought, we made news with the podcast with Josh Hurt. So people have repeatedly cited the things that he has said, and I'm also going to tease. I'm going to tease, Jack.
Oh.
I have two little birdies who have told me some very interesting stuff about dates that have been put on their calendars for this. So for this whole coaching search finale. So we'll see if those were just precautionary or if those are things that that actually mean something. That will be in my newsletter, jeffgreer.substack.com. So Jack, first and foremost, before we get into anything to do with the coaching search, I want to do two things. First, we don't know the brackets. We don't know the matchups. I want your Final Four teams right now. Go.
All righty. I got Kentucky.
Wow.
I got
coming on the Louisville pod.
I know.
Wow.
You know, as a kid that grew up in Louisville, that went to games at Freedom Hall, the upsetter all my childhood, and then goes to Indiana, the other rival, another big rival.
That's true.
It pains me a lot to say it. It really does. But
that's funny.
but I have to say Kentucky. If you put the
Okay.
gun to my head right now, if they're healthy, I don't know if there's a team that can beat them when they play their best.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if there is. And again, it pains me a lot to say it, but Kentucky I'm high on. Gonzaga, obviously the number one team in the country. I think Mark Few has a great chance of finally breaking that last hurdle and winning the national title this year. And then it's weird because Baylor is playing without Jonathan Tchamwa, who is the heart and soul of that team, means so much to them on the defensive end. And LJ Cryer's their leading scorer, and he hasn't played in like a month either, and he's probably done for the season. But you watch them, what they did against Kansas and what they did Monday night at Texas, winning games against two really, really good teams, one elite in Kansas and one really good in Texas. And doing it in two very different ways. I got to put them in there also. And then you got to have an odd one just because it's never chalk. It's never chalk. And
do it.
I'm not doing Indiana. But
no, I'm curious where this is going.
All right. We see this sometimes where a guy's just able to put a team on his back and just go absolutely wild. I mean, UConn's the two examples that are most famous.
Yeah.
Kemba Walker, Shabazz Napier, Davidson to the Elite Eight with Steph Curry. I think Johnny Davis is the guy that can do that this year.
That was not what I was expecting. Okay,
there's a lot of different ways I could go with that. I know. And I feel like that's very much something that could flame out and completely burn me in the face. And I also had Alabama in the preseason Final Four. So for the preseason, I just said, I'm going to do a way off the board and just do some fun things. And it didn't really work out. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
It happens,
but Wisconsin, I think Johnny Davis, Sheboy might win Player of the Year, but Johnny Davis is the best player in the country. He is the guy that I look at and say he can go get you a bucket at any point in time. He's a great rebounder as well, which is weird for his size. And I think he is good enough to have a Kemba Walker type run. He is. Now, all that obviously depends on the matchups and the brackets, all that stuff. So I'll go Kentucky.
That's part of the context. We understand that. You're good.
Kentucky, Gonzaga, Baylor, and Wisconsin, and I have zero confidence in the in the latter two because of the injuries for Baylor, and obviously just I'm taking a little bit of a shot in the dark with Wisconsin. Jeff, I know you don't like the Badgers as much as
I'm not a fan of the Badgers. I just.
And I understand why.
I don't really trust him, but I mean, Johnny Davis is awesome. So if they went on a run like that, I would not be surprised.
What route did you think I was going?
I thought you were going to say Arkansas after everything we just said, the way they're playing and
they very well could.
Hot. They've looked really good.
I don't think there's a team hotter in the country right now.
They look really good. It's just. I know they're probably, I mean, they stumbled across our podcast last time. They're probably not going to stumble across it again this time. And they might think we're sucking up to them, but sincerely, it has been very fun. It's fun when teams like that are good because of their home environment. And obviously Eric Musselman is a very entertaining guy and they play entertaining basketball. All right. My quick Final Four picks. Preseason. This is what I had preseason: Gonzaga, Purdue, Texas, Kentucky. Absolutely hate my Texas pick.
I also had Texas.
A lot of us did.
I think they make a run though. I think they
could, but they could also lose in like a 4-13 game, which I kind of think is going to happen.
They're like Wisconsin in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I've got Gonzaga. I still think they're going to win the national title. I've got Kentucky. No. I changed that, didn't I?
Auburn.
We just did Jack's show, and now we're doing the reverse here for my show. I have Auburn, a team that I think is really enjoyable. I'm a little worried about Kentucky's health. I think they still have plenty of time to get right, but they need those guards. They need both of those guards to be playing, and it just. Until I see otherwise, in a week, I'll probably be like, I like Kentucky. But right now, give me Auburn. I'm buying low on Auburn. And then I've got Baylor because I'm completely coaxed by what I just saw against Kansas. It was what a performance that was. Their defense, the way they play defense, it's Auburn is similar when Auburn's clicking. Like there's just nowhere to go. And it's so fascinating how difficult so many shots are for teams to get on them. And then my fourth pick is kind of the slow and steady wins the race program that has just consistently been successful over a long time and just seems to pop up every now and then in Final Fours, even when they're not as good as they were with the 2 national title teams. And I've got Villanova in the Final
I like
Four.
that pick a lot.
So,
I do. I almost went Villanova.
Pick.
Yeah,
it's a value pick.
I will say if there's 3 teams right now that I look at and say if they're playing their best basketball, they're the best team in the country by far. Or I guess 4, because you got to include Gonzaga also. So, but they've done that a lot of the year. But you look at Baylor. If everything was perfect, I think they'd be head and above the best team in the country. Kentucky, I think you can say that as well for the reasons I said earlier. And then, again, Louisville guy, Indiana guy, and I'm saying Kentucky and Purdue as 2 of the teams. But if Purdue could just play adequate defense, they'd be the best team in the country. They can't even do that. But if you just had to leave that caveat there, if they somehow pull a 2015 Duke and figure things out on the defensive end and just in time for the NCAA tournament, they can absolutely win it all because no one's stopping that offense. It's just they can't stop anyone on the other end. They're like Iowa last year in that case.
Now, the funny thing about all of this, Jack, is, and this is a perfect segue here, a lot of those teams are coached by guys whose names have been attached to the Louisville job, who have been connected to the Louisville job. We need to talk about that. I would say that there is, let me put it this way, first and foremost. For those of people who are stumbling across these live streams and just like, who are these jamokes? Like, I've covered Louisville for now 9 years. I was the beat writer for the Courier-Journal for 5 of them. Broke a lot of news, then continued to break news with The Athletic, left the country for a season, came back and continued to break news on the Louisville beat, if I can pump my own tires for a second. So I'm not just talking out of my ass about what's going on at Louisville. So
I'm talking out of my ass. I'll admit
that's okay. That's okay. And I'm not saying that as like an ego thing at all. And I know once I say that, then people are like, yes, you are. I'm just saying, like, there's credibility here with what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to parse things. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I was a little more careful than I was when we first started talking about who might be interested and who isn't. There are people who have different sources than me, who have said different things. That's okay. They could be right in the long run. We could find out. We're going to find out very soon who is right and who is wrong, and not necessarily wrong, but maybe getting information from places where it's not as close to the source of what's all the stuff that's going on, the fire that's burning. This is what I know. The interim athletics director at the University of Louisville, Josh Hurd, we had him on our podcast a few weeks ago. His work over the past few years, I know that there are certain people loyal to certain athletics director in the past at Louisville who completely diminish everything that Josh Hurd has done. I don't know what that is all about. The dude was an important cog in the wheel at U of L for a long time and was given some serious assignments. He left to go work at Villanova, where he worked as a contact for the Villanova men's basketball team, which we literally just picked to go to the Final Four and has won 2 national championships, and then returned as the deputy AD at Louisville. So in his work in all of those things, and I'm not saying he should get the job, I'm not saying he shouldn't get the job, but to diminish him is just so stupid and so childish. He has talked to a lot of agents over the years. He has a lot of agents he has relationships with, and a lot of people in the basketball world who he has relationships with. So he is bouncing ideas off of people. He is talking to a lot of people about this job, sounding them out, trying to find out who might be interested, trying to figure out what the money looks like, trying to figure out all of this stuff. And that has all been going on now for a while, as you would expect. The search firm was hired, as he said on our podcast, to do some vetting, to assist in the process. And I find it really, really hard to believe, and I cannot outright say it's not true, but I find it really hard to believe that Josh Hurd would be calling all of these agents and talking to all of these different people and sounding them out and listening to their ideas and going through all of these paces, hiring a search firm along the way and spending 6 figures on a search firm to do some extra legwork for them, to just be a diversion for a job that has already been given to someone. I find that very hard to believe. That all being said, I still think that if you told me right now, Jeff, you absolutely have to predict who's going to be the next coach at Louisville, I would still say Kenny Payne. But I've not talked to a single person who has the level of confidence or the level of inside information to suggest that there's been an agreement or even an offer to anyone as of yet. The only other guy who I think is in the end going to be part of the conversation, and again, this can all change in a few weeks, is Mick Cronin, which I know has been talked about. I have heard the same things, the same rumblings about Scott Drew. If he were to be available, obviously that would be a huge game changer. And if he's available and wants to talk to you and he's interested, you can pay him what he wants, you go hire the dude, because he's one of the top 3 coaches in the country right now for the position. But all of that is to say, I still think Kenny Payne ends up with the job. But I would be least surprised out of all the other names that have been thrown around if some way, somehow down the line, Mick Cronin gets a phone call and is a candidate. The last thing I'll say real fast, Jack, the timing of everything, people just jumped on. Well, Josh Hurd wants a hire in place right after the season is over. He also couched that and said, unless there is someone who wants to talk to us and their team, they won't talk to us before their team is in the NCAA tournament. So that left open a big old caveat there, a big old loophole to say, if they really want someone and they really believe that person would be interested, they will wait for that person. So I think we're going to find out pretty quickly next week, once Louisville finishes playing, where this thing might actually be, because then I think we might start seeing some smoke around what that looks like. So the conversations are ongoing. I know that there's a lot of coaches who probably need some preconditions to be met before they would talk to Louisville. If it goes to that level of interviews where they talk to 3 or 4 people, I think they have to. I don't think you can just hire one person without interviewing other people. You've got to interview multiple candidates, but there's a few people who I have been told would be disappointed to find out that there are other people who are also being interviewed and that they did not have the inside track to the job. So it's a dance. It's musical chairs, and you got to get some things right. So that's where we are as of March 1st. But again, as I have said before, and I will say again, I have heard certain things, and there are other people who have heard other things. I'm not saying they're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right, but that's just my perception of this search right now. And that perception is clearly very different than some of the other things that I have seen out there.
I'd say, first of all, if Scott Drew's interested, you gotta, make the call and figure that out, right?
No question.
Right? Like I'm not saying, you automatically hire him. Again, I think the biggest mistake looking back on Chris Mack and the hiring there was that everyone looked at Mack, except for 2% of people that were saying Kenny Payne, that were dismissed. And obviously this time around, they have not been dismissed in the same fashion. Everyone zeroed in on Chris Mack, and though he was National Coach of the Year, did great things at Xavier, it just didn't work here. Yep. So you can't just
repeat that.
Yeah, Kenny Payne or not, or Scott
Drew.
And
can I just add one thing real quick?
Yeah.
The courtesy phone call that was not actually that courteous to Kenny Payne after it was clear that Chris Mack was going to be hired. You can't do that. That was not good, because now there is still some bad feelings over that. Now, of course, that could be papered over quickly, and obviously Vince Tyra is no longer the athletics director at Louisville, so I think the conversations are going to be very different. But that you can't just zero in on someone, and that's why I don't think they can just zero in on Kenny Payne. I think that would be silly without talking to other people first. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying you can't just zero in on a Kenny Payne or Scott Drew or Mick Cronin or a Musbus. You can't just go after one dude and just make him the end all be all. You have to have an open search. You have to actually interview some people, and you got to go through, a hiring process, which Louisville didn't really do last time. They time. And again, everyone thought it was the right hire at the time.
Yeah,
I'm
no
not
question.
questioning the hire. It was, the Grand Slam hire, Chris Mack. It just didn't work out. And what happens when you make a hire that doesn't work out? You usually do the inverse the next time around,
Yes,
for better
yes.
or worse. And I think for better, in terms of, you have to have an open search and open interviews and stuff like that. I think that's one of the ways where that can work and it be better for you to try to learn from last time. Now, I'm not saying that you should just go automatically hire Kenny Payne because you dismissed him last time either. Obviously, he brings things to the table. He also hasn't won a national championship, which Scott Drew has done, or been to a Final Four like Mick Cronin has. So you're just trying to weigh these pros and cons. But for me, Scott Drew's the one guy, unless Jay Wright was somehow available, which we can all agree that that's not happening. Or Mark Few, or we can do the dumb Indiana thing of let's offer Brad Stevens $70 million and make him say no. But
they took a swing. I have so much respect for that. You take the swing. You got to take the swing. It's your prodigal son. You take the swing. I like that they did that.
20-second side note, I'm not mad that they took the swing. I'm mad that they took that swing and then didn't swing on a Chris Beard or a Scott Drew after that. Like, if you will take one, why not take more? But anyways, that's done. That was a year ago. This also isn't an IU podcast. But looking at this, Scott Drew is that Grand Slam guy that you can possibly get. He knows how to rebuild a program. As bad as Louisville is now, it's not nearly as bad a shape as Baylor was in when Scott Drew took over. That was a complete mess. And yes, it took him a few years to build that up to get to the tournament. But once he started doing that he's made 9 tournaments. Of those 9 tournaments, he's been to the second weekend 5 times.
Yeah.
And you look at the last 3 years, in 2020, if there was a tournament, he would have been a 1 seed. Last year, he was a 1 seed and won the title. And this year, he's probably damn well going to be a 1 seed again.
Yeah.
So
they were, Jack, Baylor is 79-11 the last 3 years. And it's not just the last 3 years. I mean, they've been to multiple Elite Eights. I mean, that is a really good program. They play really good defense. His staff, the coaching tree who have come off of that staff, you talk about Grant McCaslin, Matt Driscoll, all these guys. Jerome Tang is now being talked about as like the next Tommy Lloyd out there. Like that, it is a development job that he has done there. But I'd have to be sold that there's like something actually really there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just talking about a guy who is obviously a really good coach. Jack, can I tell you something?
Yeah, for sure.
So we're recording this on Tuesday.
Yes.
Louisville has 2 more games, and the women's team, the Cardinals on the
is really,
side,
really good.
They are really good, and you're going to want to watch those games, right?
Yeah.
So Cards fans, Great Flood is going all out this season, and during all televised Cardinal men's and women's basketball games, their drinks 10% cheaper for the entirety of the game. This pricing is available at both the Highlands Tap Room and the Middletown Restaurant, which, yes, both have plenty of ways to watch the games. We love hosting you and can't wait to root along with you as we cheer on our Cardinals. Thank you for your loyal support, and go Cards. And as a side note, we're now expanding our options in our tap room for the first time in 7 years, offering wine by the glass or bottle, and liquor and cocktail menu is coming soon. And on Sundays at either location, enjoy endless mimosas. Jack, are you a mimosa guy?
I would absolutely love a mimosa.
Do you dabble? You dabble in the mimosa?
I dabble. It's not something I do very often, but when I have,
when I do,
yes,
they're bottomless.
I can't drink right now because I'm on a diet. But
you know what? Good for you. I haven't been drinking very much either, but
but when I get off that diet, I have to do a mimosa day.
There you go. I love that.
Yes, I have to go from mimosas to Bloody Marys.
Yes, there you go. It's good choices. And by the way, because Jack, I know, is a big March Madness guy, just like me.
Oh yeah.
You're probably sizing up what your bets are going to be here coming up for the NCAA tournament. I'm truly just a bracket guy, but maybe this year I make the switch because I want to tell you about our pals over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now is the time. Obviously, it's March 1st as of this recording. You'll be listening to it on March 2nd or later, but either way, it's freaking March. They're offering a
Yes.
$250 match bonus for your first deposit. What sets them apart is they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. And with their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. Basketball season, obviously, close to reaching its pinnacle with March Madness. So get in on the action right now, going today to betrivers.com or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. And of course, you've got to be 21 years or older. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Jack, let me ask you this. And I said this a few weeks ago. And I asked you this a few weeks ago when we first started talking about all of this. And I'm curious for your thoughts. Do you buy the era of good feelings rhetoric that is out there about what needs to be this next Louisville coach? Or do you think that whole thing of like, this next coach has to kiss babies and shake hands with all of the old players and bring back people into the fold and all this stuff? Do you buy any of that, or do you feel like it's maybe a little overrated? I'm curious for your thoughts, because I'm somewhere in between. I don't think it's overrated, and that's the wrong word, but I kind of feel like if they hired someone who just won games and was like not a jerk to former players and welcomed them back, people would be just as happy as having a former player be the head coach.
Well, here's where I'm at on this. And I know Luke had, the great answer last week where he goes, you got to be able to cooperate with the media and the fans and be, the baby kisser type of deal. And that, to me, it helps you a lot if you're not winning very much, which at the start of this, you're probably not going to be winning very much. So maybe that helps you some. But at the end of the day,
a lot of roster work to do next year.
Yeah, it's that last statement that I always stick with. If you're winning games, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, if you're winning games, as long as you're not a complete jerk, a complete Bob Knight, you're going to be fine in terms of that. If you win games, everything else is forgiven. I mean, we've seen that over and over again, time and time and again at sports, have we not? I mean,
we have.
We've seen, the NFL, tons of guys get arrested for like domestic abuse and other things that aren't okay, and they're still in the league. That's not, something new. I'm not even saying you should hire a coach that's a domestic abuser. Obviously, you should not do that. But
I feel like we shouldn't even have to say that.
Yes, I feel like we shouldn't have to say that. But just in case, I'm taking yes. But I mean, like, you can be an ass, but if you're an ass that wins, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't be an ass
within reason.
Yes, you can't be an ass and lose. That's where, like, look at Chris Mack. I mean, one of the things that people, I'm not calling Chris Mack an ass, but one of the things that people didn't like was that he wasn't personable with the media or personable enough with the fans.
He could be
or something like that. Yes, and no one was saying that when they were the number one team in the country in December 2019, and were going to be a 3 or 4 seed that year. Mm-hmm. It only became an issue when he missed the NCAA tournament last season and had the complete dumpster fire that was this season. It wasn't an issue until he stopped winning. So for me, as long as you win, nothing else matters in terms of that. As long as you have just a little baseline of competence of treating people with somewhat respect, you're good. Just win games, man. I mean, it's Louisville. It's supposed to be one of the 5-10 best programs in the country. If you win games, everything else falls into place.
Yeah. And look, I think this isn't traditional college basketball anymore. I think a lot of it is being savvy with how to navigate social media. Obviously now NIL is a big thing, and understanding how to have those conversations. I think you've got to be out front on current events and issues, and you don't have to necessarily agree with everybody or disagree with everybody, but you've got to be able to talk about them comfortably with a microphone in your face. And all of those things. And I think, look, this is a big job. I mean, Josh Hurd said it on our podcast. This is a big job, and this is not a job just for anybody. And, the difference, like you talk about Kenny Payne, he will come in understanding the dynamics of the state and definitely of the job and the people around the job. And I think that gives him a unique advantage that maybe counters the lack of head coaching experience. Although there's a long conversation we could have about why that has never come, that head coaching experience. But I don't know enough about him to say like he would be shaking hands and kissing babies and be able to politic around town. But I don't know enough about a lot of these guys to think that. That's why you keep coming back to like Jay Wright and Tony Bennett, and like Leonard Hamilton and some of these guys who just have great personalities, who are out there. People love them. They're loved in their communities and their institutions where they are. We don't know that about most of these guys. Like Cronin was liked in Cincinnati by Cincinnati fans.
Not Xavier fans.
But not Xavier fans and not Chris Mack. And then he's in LA, where UCLA, even though it's the most famous college basketball program of all time in terms of like championships and John Wooden being the legend that he is kind of, I don't want to say irrelevant, because they're not irrelevant, but it's just not the same that it was a long time ago. So I don't know, but he knows the landscape in Louisville. And that's why I've kept his name in any conversation I've had, because he knows what this job is. He's from the region, but he also worked here for a couple of years and knows what Louisville is. He was on Patino's staff after Denny Crum. Like, he knows what this job is, and coached in Freedom Hall and all those things. So it's a big job. And there's a lot of people with a lot of differing opinions. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And for someone to take this job, winning cures all, but you also have to be comfortable dealing with all of those groups, not just some of those groups that have been frustrated in years past. You have to be able to deal with all of those groups. And so just as much as anyone who wouldn't be Kenny Payne would have to come in and do some work and diplomacy to extend some olive branches and work with former players, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If it's not him, or if it is him and he comes in, you've got to do some work with people who were in the other camps, who might be frustrated with how things have gone. So
that's a tough thing. Nothing's going to unite the
complicated.
Yeah,
it's super complicated. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Last thing then, Jack, I'm going to give you a choice.
Yeah.
Over under, not that he's been announced, over under that Louisville has likely interviewed it's the front runner for the job by, let's see, we're recording this on March 1st. Likelihood that it gets out that Louisville has interviewed and zeroed in on, which is always the phrase that people use, zeroed in on a candidate by March 22nd. Over under. Under
that's all.
Towards April.
That's almost just asking me if it's going to be Kenny Payne or not, in a way, right?
That's fair.
Because
that's fair.
If it's
maybe it takes them a long time to negotiate a contract.
If it's going to be someone like Musselman or Cronin, or if they somehow land Scott Drew, then you figure it would be later, because those teams would be going deeper in the tournament, more likely than not. If they've zeroed in on Kenny Payne, you would figure they would hire him sooner rather than later. That's kind of the logic. Going back to the Josh Hurt clip, why everyone went like, "Oh, it's Kenny Payne," because he kept throwing out the end of the Louisville season date with that caveat of it. But if it's, I'm gonna go under, because at this stage, again, I'm just the local radio gas bag here for ESPN Louisville, but I still at this stage think it's going to be Kenny Payne at the end of the day. So that to me would say under.
Okay.
So okay. I do have a question for you too before we get out of here.
Okay.
So
we'll end on this.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I keep coming back to with this coaching search, and obviously I'm not the only person to say this. I mean, Goodman, Doster, everyone, the Field 68 guys have said it. It's been said around locally some as well, is just Louisville doesn't have a permanent athletic director and doesn't have a permanent president. To me, that really limits who they can get for this job at this stage, combined with all the NCAA stuff that's from the IRP that still hasn't been settled. either. How, just, I guess, kind of two questions in one then. How much does not having a permanent AD and president impact the coaching search and who they might end up being able to get? And is there any chance that they have a permanent AD, Josh Hurt, or someone else in the next couple weeks or so to make that hire?
I'll answer the second one first. I would be absolutely shocked if they hire an AD, permanent AD, before the basketball coach is hired. And the reason I say that is they have announced that they want to have a search firm for that. They've set up the committee for all that. But these are university people and they take forever to do everything. So I would say the athletics director position will be an interim for a while. As far as the infrastructure question, the leadership infrastructure, I guess is a good way to describe it. It matters. I mean, it certainly matters. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I know I repeat myself with a lot of the different things that I say, but they're pertinent to keep saying them. This isn't like TPS reports in a cubicle boss. Okay. This is not the same thing. This is a $4 million a year contract to someone. This is, as Josh Hurt said 2 weeks ago, this is due diligence on a $30 million contract potentially for a head coach. So there's a lot of money at stake. So it's not the same as saying, well, I don't care who my supervisor is, so why would a coach care? It's so different. That's why whenever anyone brings up Jay Wright, it's like, he's not going to leave the situation he's in, or Mark Few. The university has backed them and they back the university so well that why would they go somewhere else if they've got it made there and they can compete for national titles if that's what they want to do? So all of that being said, I think that, I think Josh is a guy who presents well. I think he's a very clearly sharp person when you talk to him. I don't know anyone who has come away from talking to him and not be like, he's a sharp guy. Now, you may not think he should be the permanent athletics director. You may say he would do well to go get a job somewhere else, and maybe down the line he could be the athletics director at a top, what people believe is like a top 15, top 20 athletics program in Louisville, or maybe higher when they really have it flying. But he's a sharp guy. And when you throw in the search firm, I think that there's enough smarts of any of the coaches we've talked about, including Kenny Payne, where they know what the job is. And I think when you believe in the job, you can figure out the other stuff a little bit better. And when you believe in what the job represents, when you say, I know Louisville basketball, I know what it stands for in the city, I know what it stands for and represents in this region, with the rivalry that it's involved in, but to a lesser extent with Indiana, but obviously Kentucky.
It's Kentucky,
it's Kentucky 100,000%. But when you understand all of those things and you know what it was like when they had it rocking under Pitino and under Denny Crum, and you had packed houses at Freedom Hall, packed houses at the Yum Center, you're competing in the ACC now. People know what Louisville can be, and coaches know better than anyone what it can be. So I would say you would want as many assurances as you can get that things will be okay, but you also know what the job is. And I think the job is the most important thing. Would it scare away some guys? Probably, yeah. But I think it's not scary enough, I guess is how I would phrase it, to put off every coach imaginable. The other thing I would just say real fast, because I know I'm rambling and we've also gone well past what I already said we should keep our show limited to.
As is tradition.
Tradition unlike any other.
Yes.
This is crazy, and I've already said this, but it was written. But this may be perceived as crazy by people. I don't think Louisville's getting a postseason ban. I really don't. The NCAA changed its constitutional language this year it is spelled out in lettering right there for everyone to see, flat out discouraging divisions 1, 2, and 3 and conferences when it might get into that scenario, discouraging them from ever giving postseason bans or giving out punishments that hurt current athletes when they were not involved. And that's exactly what a postseason ban does. Is everyone is saying, like, they're kind of just saying, don't give people postseason bans. I don't know what the alternative is because Louisville's on probation. I don't know how much they'll be able to argue successfully from the U of L side that a bunch of these allegations are either foggy or not quite true or whatever their argument is going to be. But I think Louisville may be in a decent position here because, one, the allegations against Chris Mack are now legal in NCAA rules. The recruiting videos and the staffers on the court is now legal. So that's one issue that's no longer a thing in the rule book. And then you throw onto it all of the muddying of the waters on any of the FBI stuff. And maybe they do because they would be perceived to be repeat offenders, and they could say, even though these don't all add up to level 1 violations, or we don't have enough proof on all of them, it's a institutional pattern of behavior, and you're on probation, so here's a 1-year postseason ban. That could happen. I'm not saying it won't, but my prediction is that it doesn't, and that whoever is the head coach finds that out like right before their season starts for their first year at Louisville. So that's my big. I think they'll still get hit by a lot with a lot of stuff like financial fines, scholarship reduction, which will hurt the new coach, and recruiting visit limits and all those things. But I just am not convinced that they're going to get a postseason ban.
That would be a big boost for whoever the next head coach ends up being. However, since you're not going to find that out until October, more likely than not, if you're following the same type of timeline that NC State had before them, then they have the IRP hearing in June. It'll be probably 4.5 months after that. That makes it a difficult spot to try to recruit guys to come to the roster, especially if it's going to be a 1-year thing. Like, maybe we can play in the tournament. Maybe we can't. That's gonna. It's
help
still
anybody.
Yeah,
it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, the timing of it is still going to hurt, unfortunately, for Louisville, unless we hear something sooner than what we expect from the IRP.
Yeah. Well, Jack, it's always fun doing this with you, my man. We've run long, so we won't talk anybody's ears off anymore. But it's March. It's early March. I would be surprised if we know who Louisville's head coach is by the next episode. But maybe we know by 2 episodes from here, and maybe the guest will be the new head coach. Maybe, probably not. But we should know soon. And I know people are getting antsy and people are taking swipes at each other and all that stuff. That's not really my speed, but yeah, we'll see how things shake out, Jack. So stay tuned, and thanks for doing this with me.
Thanks, Jeff. Always enjoy coming on. You know that. Always a blast.